please write them down, because we will probably come back around and do some other type of event, and we might focus on certain topics, and maybe try and get people back together in a few months' time. So your questions will be really important to guide us in that as well, and also help to answer for you. So any questions, we'll collate them and we'll get them out probably onto the board. So don't be afraid to write them down or anything. So I'm going to introduce you then now to Emma Wallace, who will take you through eligibility of expenditure.
Thank you, David. My name is Emma. I'm the eligibility manager within the Special Purpose Programme. And what I just want to talk today about is just to sort of put in context what eligibility of expenditure is. And that really centres around costs. This relates to the cost you've incurred while implementing a project. So one of the things as an organisation, we want to ensure that you get refunded for as much expenditure that you've incurred as possible. But to be able to do that, you need to incur it in relation to different sets of rules. So the programme rules are, like we mentioned earlier on, and they are based on expenditure must comply with both EU rules, programme rules and national rules. So that's regarded as a hierarchy of rules, and there's 3 different levels. So the highest level is the European rules, and that's the European regulations that have been set up that we have to comply with. Then there is particular rules in relation to the PEACEPLUS Programme, and those are all included in each individual investment area, what activity that your project is targeting and implementing towards. And then also then the national rules, and that is a blend of the national rules within Northern Ireland and Ireland that have been brought together. So the rules for the programme are all included then in the programme manual, and that's one of the things you need to make sure that you're aware of. As we talked about earlier on today, that really needs to be your best friend. You need to have that on your desk, you need to be referring to it. And it is designed in a way that it will cover all stages of your project and should cover everything. And that is your first point of contact to do looking at the programme manual. And if you need clarification then on that, you then will contact the case officer. And we will then go through the process then of trying to guide you and give you the assistance that you need on that. So in principle, sort of general principles, every item of expenditure must then comply with both the EU rules, programme rules and national rules. Also the items of expenditure then need to be clearly linked to your project and essential for the delivery of your project. So all your projects are very different. Different investment areas have different priorities. So something that might be eligible under one programme or one project isn't eligible under another. So when you're looking at your incurring your costs, you need to look at the purpose of your project and what you've been funded for and what was included in your application. So everything that you've already set out and you've been approved on that basis. So you've already got your defined project and you're then expected then to implement that. You need to then apply then with all approved costs, you need to relate to different cost categories. And those are included then in Annex 1 of the programme manual. There's a fact sheet for each of the different cost categories. All costs must be identifiable, verifiable and documented. And you'll become very familiar with that whenever you're dealing with your controller, when your partner reports and your costs are being incurred or being verified. Costs also then need to be incurred by the partner and incurred within the eligibility period. And the eligibility period is included in your letter of offer. The costs then also need to be incurred. You need to be able to show that they've either been gone through your separate bank account or they're being coded through to accounting code in your organisation's accounting system. And you need to provide evidence of bank statements to support that. You need to also comply with public procurement rules, and we'll talk about those later on, but they're included in Annex 2. There's different thresholds depending on the items, the values, the items of expenditure that you have to comply with. And also as well, there's no double funding. So that really means that you haven't received funding from another source for the same activity. Another thing that we need to be very mindful of as well now is that a lot of the project will have simplified cost options, so you need to make sure that items of expenditure which are covered by a simplified cost option can also not be claimed as a real cost or an item of expenditure as well, because that also is regarded as double funding. As well as eligible, we're very clear on what ineligible items are, and these are based on what the European regulations. So they've clearly said that interest in debt isn't eligible, and the purchase of land cannot exceed 10% of the total eligible expenditure of the project. VAT, which is recoverable for projects with total cost of over 5 million, isn't eligible. So this is a change from the previous programming period. So VAT is eligible for projects where your total project cost is 5 million, irrespective if you can claim it from another source. But if your project is greater than 5 million, you only can claim back VAT if you can't claim it from one of the revenue sources. So that is a change from the previous programming period. You should already probably have been mindful of that and it's been included in your partner budget. But if you have any queries in relation to that, you can discuss that with your JS officer and they can give you further guidance on that. Fines, financial penalties and expenditure relating to legal disputes and litigation isn't eligible. Costs of gifts are not eligible. Now that has changed from PEACE4 and INTERREG 5. There used to be a threshold or lower threshold that gifts were eligible. This time around, the Commission have ruled that no gifts are eligible. Costs related to fluctuation of foreign exchange rates are also not eligible. And you cannot engage with a project partner to deliver activity. So what that means is you can't actually get one of your partners to do something on a commercial basis and pay them. Like you shouldn't be including them if you have to go out to public procurement for some activity. You cannot invite your partner to tender for those works. The only way that the partner can do those works is if they have it included in their budget and they do the activity on a real cost basis. So that's very key, that you need to make sure you do not contract with partners to deliver activity. And also activities must be completed and payments must be made before your project is complete. So there's different types of costs. We consider basically there's real costs and simplified costs. So the real costs cover 4 different cost categories. So there is staff costs, external activities and services, equipment, and infrastructure and works. So that's where you will be claiming the actual invoices or the payroll documentation related to those items. Then there is simplified cost options, and there's 3 different methods of those simplified cost options related to, which is flat rates, unit costs, and lump sums. And just again, to reiterate the point, the expenditure covered by a simplified cost option cannot be included in any other cost category and the cost categories that the board just mentioned at the start of that slide. So just going through different cost categories now. So staff costs, that's included in fact sheet 1 in the programme manual. And this relates to staff directly employed in the project. And there's the easiest way to determine if those costs from the staff cost category is there's 2 sort of like tests that you have to go through. Is there a legal link between the project partner and employee? The legal link is a contract. And has there been transfer of monies? So you need to make sure they're the only if you satisfy those 2 conditions, the cost can come under staff costs. One of the things just to note that agency costs are not eligible under staff costs if you have agency staff, because the legal link isn't between the partner and the employee, and the transfer of monies doesn't happen between the partner and employee. They are both, the agency staff are employed by the agency organising the recruitment agency, and they're also paid by the recruitment agency. So those costs will come under a different cost category. There's office and admin, that covers your indirect costs, and that's covered in fact sheet 2 in the programme manual. And all projects with the exception of Investment Area 3.2 will receive 15% of their direct staff costs as a flat rate. And projects then that are the 3.2 projects are able to receive 40% of their direct staff costs as a flat rate. And the difference there is that they only have 2 cost categories, which is staff and the office and admin. And the 40% is then designed to cover all their costs. Third cost category then is travel and accommodation. And that's included in fact sheet 3 of the programme manual. You can look further information there. But these are paid again as flat rates. This is a change in this programming period where you will not be asked to submit your travel expenses and your costs that relate to travel and accommodation. You'll receive a flat rate for that. And the flat rates have been established as 7% of direct costs for investment areas except 3.2 and 4.3. And then investment area 4.3, they have a different percentage, which is 4.5% of their direct staff costs. And again, we can't say it enough, that expenditure covered by a simplified cost option cannot be claimed under any other cost category. So external expertise and services is covered under fact sheet 4 of the programme manual, and that is where you engage the services of an external provider or somebody outside the organisation to do some activities for you. And again, those activities are very specific and relate directly to your project. So again, expenses or costs incurred by one project will be very different from another due to the nature of the approved project. Equipment costs, there's a cost category for that, and that's covered in fact sheet 5. And this is where you can claim costs for equipment you either purchased, rented, or leased by the project partner. Infrastructure and works is covered in fact sheet 6 of the programme manual, and that's for the purchase of land, building permits, building materials, labour, and costs in relation to that. So there will only be certain projects that have an infrastructure and works cost category. And that's the thing I suppose to remind you as well. I mentioned previously that the activities or the expenses that you can claim have to fit within your approved project, but you also have to have a budget provision to allow for those costs. If you don't have budget provision or a cost category in your letter of offer, you cannot claim costs underneath that cost category, and you have to live within the value that's been approved. If you find that you need to make a change, that's something you need to have a conversation with your JS then to find out if you need to go through a modification. But you do need to make sure that you are mindful of how much money you have in your budget under the cost categories, and you know what your ultimate aim of your project is. Apart from then the cost categories we've also looked at, there is then the simplified cost options. So under investment area 1.1, they have a preparation lump sum they're able to receive, and under investment area 3.1, they're actually is a unit cost for shared learning together programme, and those then are claimed as a separate line when they're putting in their part reports. Those costs aren't included in any of the other cost categories. So procurement, I just wanted to touch on the procurement thresholds. Procurement is a big thing for all projects, and when you incur costs between 200 and 5,000 euros sterling, either sterling or euro, you have to receive at least 2 price checks from competent suppliers. And what we mean by a competent supplier is somebody that ordinarily provides those goods and services. So you need to make sure you're proving and you're showing that you've received the best value for money. You also need to make sure that you're getting the quotes in relation to the entire activity. It isn't just the one-off. In the simplest form, if you were having a training course and you were getting teas and coffees, it's not the tea and coffee for the one-off event. It's if you know you're running a 20-week course, it's the cost of purchasing the teas and coffees for 20 weeks. So it's the entire activity you have to treat and make sure you adhere to the procurement thresholds for the entire function or the entire piece of works. So if you've determined how much the costs are, you then can determine which of the procurement thresholds you have to abide by. So as I say, between 200 and 5,000, it's 2 price checks. If it's between then 5,000 and 50,000, you need to receive a minimum of at least 3 written quotes, and these are sought again from competent suppliers. What I would say is that you have to show evidence of receiving at least a minimum 3, but if you do know that there is 10, even 8, 6, whatever number of suppliers who provide those services, I suppose a long time ago we used to sort of send out letters and everything else. It's an email. Put somebody else's, include them all in the email that you're sending out to say because the more people you ask, the better chance you are going to be able to appoint the best supplier who provide the services at the most cost-effective price. And you want to be able to have evidence that you actually have achieved value for money. If you only ask 3 people, the potential is that you maybe get no responses back and you're wasting time and maybe that you're at the point where you have to implement your project. So if you do know more than 3 people to provide something, include them in your quotes.
Is that to seek or obtain?
It is seek.
Seek. 3 quotes, not obtain.
Yes, but that's why I'm saying that you really, I would advise you to seek more so that you can then have evidence of, if you have something to compare to, you can then show then you are if you've got two prices that come back at least, then you can say, well, actually, I'm going with the cheapest one. Because the lower thresholds, unless you've included in your tender specification evaluation criteria, you're automatically going on price. So you need to make sure then you can show you've made that eligibility judgment. If the piece of works then is between 50,000 and the EV threshold, you need to go through full tender action. So with full tender action, you have to then, all our projects are expected or believed to be acted on a cross-border basis. So therefore you need to advertise your projects in that way and make sure that you're advertising both jurisdictions, unless your project is single jurisdiction project. And again, have a conversation with your JSK officer to make sure that you're on firm ground in believing that your project is in a single jurisdiction. So that's full tender action required. That's advertising on we recommend using the e-tenders IE and e-tenders Ireland or Northern Ireland, and that is advertising in both jurisdictions. So, and then above then the EU threshold, then you actually have to advertise your contract in the EU journal. And there is different thresholds then for that depending on which entity you fall within, if you're listed in Schedule 1 or if you're a public sector outside the civil service local authorities. It's split up into services and works, or supplies and services is your lower threshold, and then for works it's a higher threshold. One thing I just want to say is that there was introduction of the Public Procurement Act 23 came into place on the 24th of February 25. That does deviate from European regulations, but the fact that we are receiving European funding, we have to follow the European regulation, we have to follow that directive. So if you are advertising a contract and you only advertise it and find a tender service, that would not be regarded as a compliant procurement process. You have to make sure that you've advertised it on the official journal of the European Union. SEUPB have and has been for quite a while in discussion with both the CPD, both the two member states regarding trying to get clarity on the implications of the effect of the Public Procurement Act 23, and we are in receipt now of some draft legal advice which we are reviewing, and that will be shared with projects hopefully as soon as possible. But the main thing that you have to be mindful of is that we have to make sure we advertise all above the EU threshold contracts on the official journal. And again, there's the thresholds: 143,000 euros for Schedule 1, up to 2,000 if you're a local authority, and then for works sending over 5.5 million. And those figures are all excluding that. Okay? I'll now hand over now to Emma.
Just ask a question about that. You had a few seconds ago. Where do nature-based solutions fall into in that? Is it services or works?
Sorry, what are you saying?
Do you know where things like nature-based solutions would fall into in that table? Would it be supplies or services or works? Consider that.
Maybe we'll talk about
Yeah.
that. I suppose we just need to make sure what I'm not sure what you mean by nature-based solutions.
Just trying to figure out. Like,
It probably is services. I suppose I don't know what exactly. This is the thing as well. You're all experts in your fields of your area. I can tell you about eligibility, but you were there. You were implementing your project, and I had a conversation earlier on. You were there to implement your project. You know what you were doing, but you then need to make sure you do things in a compliant manner. But I will have a call.
yeah, that would be considered. Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about once your project has incurred expenditure, how we're going to go through the management verification process and ensure you get paid for this. So each partner within the PEACEPLUS project will enter details of their project expenditure onto separate partner reports on GEMS. There's step-by-step guide for these project partners on how to enter the reports on GEMS, and there's also a video guidance. I should also say that Elaine is up after me, she's going to talk in greater depth about GEMS. There's very specific instructions within the guide and the video that project partners must adhere to ensure reports are submitted accurately. The control work date will commence at the point when all partners have submitted their partner report on the date agreed with the external controller for the relevant reporting period for the quarter or GEMS. The 21-27 period of funding, there's been an introduction of a simplification. So management verifications will be risk-based. Previously, we've been checking all expenditure. However, this time, 100% expenditure checks are not required. We will be focused on high-risk areas in project expenditure, which should improve the speed of payment, ensure management efficiency of verification, and reduce unnecessary admin burdens on projects and all partners. The risk-based sampling methodology has been developed by PEACEPLUS by the Managing Authority in SEUPB. So your external controller, whoever you apply, will apply this methodology to all partner reports for the specific quarter or report period, and the list of expenditure to be fully verified will be identified. Whoever you appoint as a management verification officer will carry out the management verification. They will verify all legality and regularity of the expenditure items selected for full verification using back to Emma's explained the programme manual. They will ensure that whatever expenditure has been incurred complies with the programme manual, which will include the EU regulations. They will verify that expenditure items are supported by complete documented audit trail, and controllers will complete the management verification within the timelines that have been required and have been agreed with the individual projects. So a 12-week period is available for all project partners to submit their partner report and for the external controller to complete the management verification and the lead partner to submit the joint finance report. So there are 3 very important steps here that are going to be included within those 12 weeks. And we're going to ask you as partners to ensure that you have strict contract negotiations with whoever is carrying out your external verifications. So for example, if we took the period the 1st of January 25 to the 31st of March 25, project partners must submit the report as soon as all expenditure has left the bank. The controller will then apply the risk-based sampling methodology and carry out management verification on whichever expenditure they've selected. The controller will conclude this work and certify each individual partner report. As a lead partner then, it is up to you to complete the joint finance report, and all of the above must be completed by the 20th of June 2025. You need to work closely with your controller to ensure there's no delays and ensure that you understand and have a full expectation of how long each stage is going to take. So who is your controller in PEACEPLUS? And I know at this stage a lot of you will have already appointed controllers. If you're Northern Ireland lead-based partners or Ireland-based lead partners within the community and voluntary sector, there's been a PEACEPLUS framework agreement, which is a multi-supplier agreement. SEUPB carried out a thorough tender process and as a result of this appointed a multi-supplier framework. If you're an Irish-based lead partner within the public sector, there's an OGP framework, and this is multi-supplier, and this is taking a different methodology which I will cover in a short moment. Controllers must be external to your project and must be independent. So if you're part of the multi-supplier framework agreement, as per the 26th of February, all relevant lead partners will have been aware that we awarded this multi-service agreement. The framework started on the 14th of February 25 and it's awarded on a call-off basis for each of the 2 lots, lot 1 being capital works expenditure and lot 2 being general expenditure. If you're one of the 21 projects that are using the OGP framework, we're at different stages of this process. At the moment, OGP are facilitating the administration of these individual procurement process. Each project will have gone through its own procurement process. There's then an evaluation process, a correspondence with successful and unsuccessful tenderers, and then there's entering the contracting stage. Lead partners must follow the call-off mini competition process for the specific framework agreement and select a controller. The lead partner submits a proposal to the appoint controller to SEUPB Managing Authority. SEUPB will then consider this proposal and issue an instruction to the lead partner to appoint the controller. Lead partner and the controller will enter a formal contract. The Quality Assurance Section of the Managing Authority will assist lead partners through this entire process. I know a lot of people will have practical questions, and we are here to assist with the approbation and ensure this goes as smoothly as possible. Okay.
give you a very quick overview this morning on the GEMS system, and then I'll be available afterwards if you have any questions. So GEMS is our online monitoring system that we are using for PEACEPLUS. As part of delivery of the programme, we have to have an electronic monitoring system to accept applications and deliver the programme. So GEMS is what we're using for PEACEPLUS. The core GEMS system was developed by INTERREG for use across a number of programmes in Europe. There's over 50 programmes using it at the minute, and it was developed to be harmonised across the delivery mechanisms of all of those programmes. We have two installations of GEMS for PEACEPLUS. One is for our standard projects, and the other is for our changemaker applications, which is being managed by Pavel. So everyone here in this room today will be accessing the standard version of GEMS. So GEMS is gems.seupb.eu. So every step in your project's life cycle will be completed on GEMS. You've already done your application form and got approval, and that application form probably needs some changes before it's contracted on the system. There would have been steering committee recommendations, small changes to work plans, things like that. So the application form that gets approved forms the basis of your project for the rest of the life cycle. Implementation and reporting of the project are also completed on GEMS against the approved application form. Reporting of project progress and achievements against the targets in your work plans, that will be what you report against for the entire project. So say likewise with the budgets, your budgets were approved, broken down at cost category level. That's what you'd be submitting your lines of expenditure against on GEMS. And your case officer will verify your project's progress based on the information you're providing in your progress reports on GEMS. Certification of claims will be completed by the controllers, also on GEMS, and processing of payment of your certified expenditure is completed on GEMS as well. Project closure is a long way off, thankfully, but this will also be done on GEMS. So the GEMS monitoring system has to contain all auditable information for funded projects. There's two kind of layers of reporting on GEMS. First of all, your project needs to be at a contracted status for you to even see reporting. So your partner report screen there, your project has to be a contracted status before you even see that. When the status of your project changes to contract, which your JS case officer will do that, the reporting section will just open for you. The first level of reporting is partner reporting. So every project partner is required to submit their expenditure in a partner report for all of the reporting periods. And this is due at the end of every reporting period. We would recommend that partners are building these reports throughout the reporting period and not just leave it to the last minute. It can sometimes take a little bit of time. If they're adding lines of expenditure to the report throughout the reporting period, then it's much easier at the end. There should only be one report per partner for any reporting period. You as lead partner as well must have completed a review of every partner's report before it's submitted on the system to make sure it's correct and there isn't going to be any problems when it comes to verification. Expenditure items within partner reports, any of the lines of expenditure that you're including in a partner report, those items must have been paid and defrayed from the account before they're submitted on GEMS. The defrayment date determines the period, the reporting period that you're submitting your expenditure in. So if an item of expenditure isn't reported in a relevant period, it can be submitted in a subsequent reporting period as long as it's within 12 months of the defrayment date. So lead partner reporting then, which is what we call project reporting. This is the second level of reporting on GEMS. There's two reports in any reporting period for lead partners to complete. First of all, a joint content report must be submitted 1 month after the reporting period end date. This is a consolidated report on all the partners' progress for that reporting period. It includes information on your progress against objectives, outputs, results, deliverables, activities, all of that. It It also includes your updates on progress against horizontal principles and the target groups that you've engaged in that reporting period. In the joint content report, you must provide evidence to support the progress you're reporting to us. And this evidence can all be uploaded as attachments, but you must make sure that there's no sensitive data. Those attachments must be anonymised, aggregated data before you upload them to GEMS. The joint content report is used to evidence that satisfactory progress is being made on your project. And approval of that joint content report then allows the release of funds to your project. Your case officer, when they receive it, they'll thoroughly review the information you include in your progress report. They may revert it back to you for more information, and then once they're happy with it, it then goes to our managing authority for their checks, and then it's approved on the system. So in the time that that joint content report is being submitted and reviewed on the system, the controllers are working away on verifying the expenditure you've included in partner reports. So by the time the controllers have certified the partner reports, this joint content report will be approved on the system and ready to go. The next report the lead partner submits for every reporting period is the joint finance report. So the joint finance report, it's just basically the project's request for reimbursement of the certified expenditure. The joint finance report, as Emma said, it's due for submission 12 weeks after the reporting period end date, or as soon as all partners receive their certification for their partner reports. It's a quick and simple report to complete. You just open it on the system, there's like a tick box to attach the certificates that the controllers have issued, and you submit it. The JS, MA and accounting function then do their checks, and that can take up to 4 weeks for payment then to be released to you. Like with the partner reports, a number of fields within both the joint content report and the finance report are based on cumulative data, so you shouldn't have any more than one in draft status at any one time. So just a few things on GEMS to be aware of, and to make sure your partners are submitting their reports correctly on the system. First of all, sensitive data. It's the responsibility of both the lead partner and the project partners to redact sensitive data when it's being uploaded onto GEMS in supporting documentation or within the body of the report itself. So any personal data must be aggregated and anonymised when submitted to SEUPB via GEMS. Some personal data that's required for verification of expenditure for staff costs, for example, you may be required to upload it. So for those, you'll see there in the diagram, against every line of expenditure and partner reports, there's a flag, a little tick box. So if there's sensitive data uploaded to any line of expenditure, you must ensure that tick box is selected before you submit the report. And that ensures then that only people with the privilege to view the sensitive data can actually go in and see it. Lead partners then are responsible for managing the users that have access to your project, and there's information in the partner report and guidance document on this. So users must first be registered on the system before you can actually then link them to the project. But likewise, you must also ensure that if a staff member leaves the project, that you're going in and removing their access to the project on GEMS as well. That is your responsibility. Partner reporting can begin once your project is contracted. For partner reports, you don't need to wait for anything. Your partners can start submitting those reports straight away. But for your lead partner reports, joint content or joint finance reports, your JS case officer needs to set deadlines for you first of all before you can start creating those reports. And then when you open either partner or project reports, they'll always reflect what's in the most recently approved version of the application form. So if you have requested or have received approval for a modification to your application form, you must ensure that that has been completed on GEMS before you open the next report. So you need to make sure that the timing of reports is done correctly if there's a modification underway. So we have lots of supports available to projects and partners submitting anything on GEMS. Firstly, we have published a guidance document that provides information on every step of submitting partner reports. This has plenty of screenshots, step-by-step information. We've also got a training video that talks them through every step of it as well. You get to listen to my voice for an hour and a half. have guidance then for lead partners on submitting project reports as a separate guidance document. It's all available on the PEACEPLUS support portal. And your JFPS officer there is there as well to support you and anything like that. They generally come to me with the questions, so feel free to contact them. And lastly, just want to remind you of all the support is available on the PEACEPLUS support portal, so the programme manual, the most recent version, will always be submitted on the portal. We mentioned earlier on there's a revised version will be coming out soon enough, and that will straight away go up onto the portal. All our guidance documents, walkthrough videos, we've had previous seminars on, like the video from today will be up, previous seminars on state aid, eligibility of costs, there's procurement seminars that we've had, and the videos of all of those are up on the portal as well. And if you have any technical issues with GEMS, or have any questions in relation to GEMS or anything else, there's a support section on the portal where you can raise a ticket. So if there's technical issues, somebody will come back to you really quickly. You just raise a ticket there. All right? I'll hand back to Deirdre now.
We're getting into the section where we have lots and lots of information, so sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming, but it's all possible. Just go onto the website, watch the videos, re-watch them, and eventually, if it's your first time, it will take it up. I have two lovely subjects, state aid and fraud. Again, some people would say they're very dry, but I'll not spend too long on them. First one is state aid. For projects who are past application stage and are now approved, there will be some who have state aid identified within them, okay? And this is probably more relevant to those projects. But before we reach that decision, SEUPB will read the applications and make a decision on whether they think state aid will be there. But you as lead partners also have a responsibility in that, or would have had when you're sending in your application. And it would be thinking about if there's an economic benefit to any economic operators in your project, or potential to distort any of the markets. What's slightly different this time is that we have kind of two parts to it. We have the EU side, which is the EU state aid rules, and then we have the UK side, which is the UK Subsidy Control Act. And there's almost like a little chain here where you would ask the questions and find out what your SME or your economic operator is trading in. So for example, if they're trading in goods and manufacturing, and there's a few other things that they would fall into a category of, they would fall into EU state aid rules, and you would follow the chart for EU state aid rules. Any entities that are 100% services, they fall under the UK Subsidy Control Act. And if you have state aid in your project, this is important to know, because not only is it about the decision, but you as a lead partner will need to let your economic beneficiary, so it could be an SME in a project, know you're getting state aid and the value of it is £2,000 for your training, and there will be some reporting responsibilities there. UK subsidy, again, it depends on the type of subsidy decision that is within your project, and there are reporting requirements for MFA, for example, in UK subsidy control. This is not the forum really for going into all of that aspect. We did have a state aid webinar on Monday, and what we're going to do then for any of your projects that have state aid, we're in the process of preparing a checklist and a declaration, and just a little bit more information that will support you almost to know what you need to do and what you need to get from your SMEs or your projects that are potentially receiving EU state aid rules or UK subsidy control. But this flowchart is a really good way of going through. It goes through both regulations, and if you ask yourself the questions, you'll either end up at the UK Subsidy Control Act or you'll end up under EU state aid rules. So if I go to the very end here and I look at MFA and principles, those are the two that SEUPB have used. MFA has reporting requirements. 7 principles will not really. It will go on a UK database. And then on the EU side, you have de minimis, which has reporting requirements. And then you have GBER, and there is some reporting requirements there as well. For any projects that have de minimis, there will be a register potentially coming out with a bit more administration. We will keep you informed of that as we're informed and as we know more about it. But please ask your questions, and we will do our very best to answer them. But as I say, we're not finished with the guidance. We will be providing more. And you have the webinar on the website. So the next thing is not linked to studies, but very important for lead partners, and also for any of your project partners. And I know that it's kind of one of the things that sometimes it's there in the background, you might have policies and things like that. But anti-fraud, it's really, really high on the agenda of the European Commission at the moment. And I just have a little explanation there. So what is fraud? It's an intentional act of deception to gain unlawful advantage. It involves deliberate misrepresentation, falsification or misuse of funds. We do have the definitions on our website and we've linked it in here. There's also a little piece about understanding the difference between what is an irregularity, so what potentially is a mistake or what's something that isn't right, as opposed to what is a fraudulent act. So I've a bit in here about the regulation for what is an irregularity. So you have an irregularity, for example, with a suspicion of fraud, and that would be where you've got like a red flag. Oh, there's a red flag, I'm not sure if that is or it isn't. And then you would want to investigate that. Come to red flags in a minute. We've talked about the description for fraud, but a red flag is where you know something's not quite right, and it sometimes is an indicator of potential fraud, and needs to be observed. So it's things like conflict of interest is really important, especially in public procurement and anything that you're doing. Always remember these things, and rules are there for a reason. And a situation where an individual's personal interests could improperly influence their official responsibilities. So always be mindful of that and keep your paperwork up to date. Some tips. So adopt a clear zero tolerance policy, as most projects do. Conduct your conflict of interest, and you've heard them mentioned earlier on some of the previous slides. Just perform your due diligence and use your risk-based controls. And always just keep tailoring them and understand where your potential pressure points might be. So watch for your red flags, take care of your documents, look for missing documents, for example, if there's unusual spending or repeated errors, enable confidential whistleblowing channels, and just carry out regular audits and spot checks. They're all things you can do to help mitigate, and particularly in public procurement, things that you would be, red flags would be rig specification, collusive bidding, conflict of interest, manipulation of bids, and split purchase. Again, anti-fraud is all about having a good culture and provide fraud awareness training to your staff, to your partners, to your projects, and promote integrity and ethical behaviour across the project, which I know you all do. So these are just little reminders. And to clarify the difference between irregularity and fraud. Just know your obligations to report, and if you're in doubt or you're in a wreck, follow your procedures and act quickly and escalate your concerns appropriately. So we do have a section, say, on the website, and it's not to scare anybody, it's just to kind of make you aware that these things are hugely important. No, we're not moving slides. But I don't think. So there is another thing. The European Commission use a data mining tool called Arachne. You might hear that word coming, not during the tracks. We at SEUPB will be using that, and it's a tool which links into all the public information. And we'll put, for example, names of projects into it, and it goes in and it will spin up if, for example, there's a bad track record there or previous fraud. So those are things you might hear from us in the future. But thank you for your patience. We're going to go into the last subject, which is another one really important, and that is Ciara. Ciara. Thank you.
Manager at the SEUPB, and the Monitoring and Evaluation and Research team is made up of Mary, cousins, just in the middle, table 5, Hannah, I'm not sure where her name is now, Ellen, Caitlin, so it was just me as well. So I guess we look forward to working with you to help monitor and report on your project's achievements and performance, and to help evidence the social, economic and environmental difference that the project has made. So what do we monitor? So we monitor, report on and review the PEACEPLUS Programme's performance and achievements to the Commission through set output and result indicators within what we call the performance framework. So firstly, output indicators. These measure what the project produces as a direct result of public expenditure. So as projects, you need to collect the total number of outputs achieved, and these are outlined in your approved application form and your letter of offer. So some examples of outputs indicators here for projects today include a number of action plans implemented, a number of organisations engaged in regional level projects, a number of enterprises supported, financially or non-financially, a number of research organisations participating in joint research projects, hectares of green infrastructure supported, a number of jointly developed solutions or strategies, and a number of pilot actions jointly developed and implemented. So secondly then, the result indicators. These measure the immediate benefits or changes experienced by direct beneficiaries, population targeted, or infrastructure users. So as projects, you need to collect the total number of results achieved, again as evidenced in, as you outlined in your approved application form, and included in your letter of offer. So again, some examples for projects here today include the number of people from different communities engaged jointly in the implementation of local action plans, the number of people from different communities engaged in local and regional level projects, the number of SMEs introducing product or process innovations, number of participants accessing new rural facilities, enterprises or community services, number of management units showing positive change, or the number of strategies or solutions taken up or scaled up by organisations. So behind the overall kind of total numbers that we talk about as well, there are operational definitions of concepts that apply to the indicators and the achievement of these, as well as any exceptions. So it may mean that you have to monitor, there's additional kind of monitoring data that you will collect or processes that you have in place. So for example, you may need to collect participant demographic data, provided as specified as part of your output and result indicators, and as part of the activities and deliverables in your approved application form. So for example, this may include religious belief, racial ethnic group, gender identity, or other relevant categories, as again, just outlining specific to your approved application form and what is required as part of the output and result indicators. You may also have to collect participant contact hours, and you may also have to have processes in place to ensure the avoidance of double counting. And you will also need to evidence your contribution to the horizontal principles. So for example, in partners tend to describe the approach to the methodology taken to confirm alignment with the horizontal principles, ensuring a sufficient level of detail. And again, Elaine's outlined that within the progress reports. So some important notes. You can only collect personal data categories explicitly required for your project. You're outlined in your outputs and results. So that is within the indicators, or also those within your approved projects or deliverables. Upload data to GEMS only specified in the documentation, and all personal data uploaded to GEMS should be aggregated and anonymised. Again, please refer to your application form, the call document and the letter of offer for the exact indicators relevant to your project, and the operational definitions and concepts that apply to the indicators and achievement, and any exceptions are outlined in the performance framework section of the call document. It's also important to note that this time there's been a different approach from the last programming period. where all output and results indicators, milestones and targets are part of the performance framework and are subject to audit. Corrective measures may be taken if they are not achieved. So how to report on our data. So as Elaine, sorry, I'll already mentioned some of this in more detail, but just over the highlight. So firstly, you can use the partner reports via GEMS. They're submitted by each project partner and the partner. The frequency is every 3 months, depending on the investment area and the project start date. The contents, so partner progress, any problems, deviations, target groups, activities, deliverables, outputs, public procurements, a list of expenditure and partner contributions. So there's special cases, for example, investment area 1.1, and the delivery partners may not have access to GEMS, and the lead partner then must collect the updates offline and upload them. The supporting documents then are uploaded to GEMS, and again, there's as Elaine again has highlighted, there's no personal identifier data as well, but the sensitive flag must be selected as well. So for example, this includes names, photographs of people and addresses. So the use of these reports as well, I mean it's outlined the detail, but I guess the activity section may not be as regularly reviewed unlike the joint progress reports. So again, it's just as a project management tool, so they're compulsory to be used that way as well. So secondly, and the main reporting tool here is through the joint progress reports via GEMS. So again, they're submitted by the lead partner. Frequency every 3 months, depending on investment areas and project start date. And the contents include the consolidated activity and finance data from all partners. And the output and results indicators must be compiled and supported with evidence. So in terms of verification, JS verifies the reports, including the progress against the indicators, activities and deliverables. The partners must upload supporting information. So reporting bills and verification. Outputs and results should only be reported in the cumulative data sections when fully completed and verified with JS. Unverified outputs and results can be described again in the narrative section, and where applicable, avoid double counting as well, and again that's within your performance framework in the exclusion section. Verified data is then reported by the SEUPB to the Commission twice a year for outputs and results, so once at the end of January and once at the end of July. In terms of the verification process, evidence also aligned with your approved application form, and lead partners can also propose some flexible evidence types. In terms of, we've also developed a number of output and result verification checklists, and these are specific to each investment area. Final versions will be shared with audit and also the JS case officers, and the contents will be communicated to projects as soon as possible. So examples of the evidence for verification, so you can have your unique participant registration numbers, your contact hours, anonymised completion certificates, and again just ensure that you've aggregated figures via GEMS and no personal data. So in terms of participant demographic data, this may be required or relevant for some investment areas. So focusing here on terms of what is relevant to projects here today. So for investment area 1.1, personal data required as part of the output result indicators includes gender identity. But we don't ask this to be asked to under 18s. Racial ethnic group, religious belief, community background. For investment area 1.3, we require religious belief, community background and racial ethnic group. And for investment area 1.2, also religious belief, community background and racial and ethnic group. Personal data may not be required for other investment areas here today. So for example, investment area 2.2, 5.1, 5.2 and 5.3. However, this also depends on what you put in your application form. So this is just for in terms of outputs and results required by the Commission. But again, refer back to your application form as well in terms of what has been included there as part of your activities deliverables. So some key points: data must be anonymised and aggregated. Data will be reported against targets in your approved application forms. And proxy measures may be used if direct data is unavailable. Again, there's a section in the programme manual on that, and we're also making some updates as well. I guess just a key point to emphasise here is that proxy measures must also be anonymised and aggregated, and it's not a requirement to create a single identifiable proxy measure for an individual. terms of our participant monitoring form, so we hope to have available a participant monitoring form for lead partners to upload as a supporting document which is used to report anonymised and aggregated totals of participant demographic data where this is relevant. So this will have the percentages and the totals worked out for you. So it's not quite a small version there, but again, we're just going through the final kind of processes of looking through this one here as well. So it should be helpful in terms of that there. So you will have the totals, percentages, and then you can also put in the narrative in your judge progress report as well. That too. So it should be helpful. So in terms of why monitoring is important, so monitoring reporting are essential project management tasks, and all partners have to be involved. So monitoring measures what happens. It monitors project in progress against the milestones, targets, and timescales. It communicates progress, evidence reach, and it provides transparency and accountability, and it also complies with the regulatory requirements. So that's the end of the monitoring section. So in monitoring and evaluation can be looked at separately, the two are interlinked. So in terms of what we will evaluate, in line with regulatory requirements, we will carry out two different types of evaluation. So one is our implementation evaluation, and this focuses on how the programme is being delivered. The data should help assess the efficiency and effectiveness of delivery to improve the ongoing implementation of the programme. So for example, it will consider project application and assessment stage, the monitoring output and results, management verification, financial performance, management control and audit, GEMS, and evaluations and communications. Secondly, then we have the impact evaluations. So these will assess what change the programme has achieved and why. This will consider criteria such as the efficiency, the relevance, the adherence, the added value, and sustainability. And it will also consider the horizontal principles. So in terms of our planned evaluations for the PEACEPLUS Programme, this includes 1 implementation evaluation and 12 impact evaluations. And again, evaluations relevant to the projects here today will include impact evaluation 1, so the PEACEPLUS action plans, and this covers just investment area 1.1, the co-design, local community PEACE action plans, on and so on. Impact evaluation 2, PEACE. This will cover 2 investment areas, 1.3, building positive relations, and 4.3, victims survivors. Impact evaluation 5, research and innovation and skills. This will cover 3 investment areas, so 2.1 is SME development and transition, investment area 2.2, the Innovation Challenge Fund, and investment area 2.3, programme area skills development. Impact evaluation 6, rural development, will cover 2 investment areas, and this will be investment area 2.4, smart towns and villages, and 4.2, rural regeneration and social inclusion. Also relevant to the projects here today will be impact evaluation 9, environment, and this will cover 4 investment areas. So investment area 5.1, biodiversity, nature resilience, and nature recovery and resilience. Investment area 5.2, marine and coastal management. Investment area 5.3, water quality and catchment management. And investment area 5.4, water quality and improvement programme. Sorry. So in terms of how we will evaluate, so we will evaluate the PEACEPLUS Programme through the commissioning of independent external experts. So evaluations will be conducted and they will carry out 3 kind of key main deliverables. One is the framework reporting phase. So this will look at the theory of change. We will help co-create the evaluation questions with the SEUPB and stakeholders. They will confirm the data collection methods and they will gather contextual and baseline data. There will be 2 to 3 evaluation reports per evaluation, and there will also be learning workshops and conferences. In terms of some additional support for projects, so we do have a bank of drafted questions available for projects to use if relevant or where required for their MBA plans, and this covers some specific areas, for example in relation to good relations, citizenship, personal development. And these will also, when the evaluator comes on board as well, they will also help inform the evaluators in their surveys as well. So there'll be a bit of co-creation there. So just in case there's anything that they be obvious or something in their own internal monitoring evaluation plan needs some help or assistance in terms of what we already have available. So why is evaluation important? So as you know, PEACEPLUS is a significant investment requiring evaluation at critical stages to ensure it has the greatest impact in the region. So evaluation helps to understand what happened and why. So it helps uncover the reasons behind the successes and the challenges. It provides insights into the context, implementation and stakeholder experiences. It measures impact. So it assesses the changes directly attributed to the programme, both intended and unintended. This includes understanding the scale and significance of those changes across communities and sectors. It improves the programme. So evaluation findings can help form adjustments and refinements to improve delivery and outcomes, and ensures that the programme remains responsive to emerging needs and opportunities. It ensures accountability. So it demonstrates to funders, stakeholders and the public that resources are being used effectively. It builds trust and transparency in how decisions are made and the money is spent. It meets the regulatory requirements, so evaluation is a regular requirement within the PEACEPLUS Programme. And it also supports future decision makings. So the lessons learned guide the future of the design of future programmes, and it helps identify what works, what doesn't, and potentially where to invest next. So that's the end of the evaluation, and if there's any questions, please do ask, and I'm also about the end of today as well.
Just wondering how the external evaluators engage with the projects or lead partners. How
Yeah,
does that happen?
So they'll be obviously contracted through public procurement, so they become involved, and then there'll be a contact as well, so a contact point, so they'll meet with or an evaluation research team, and then we'll lead the point of contact as well then, for practical, and then project as well for audit and evaluation officers as well, so again we hope to kind of develop that relationship there, and we have a contact point then as well that we can go to as well, and back and forth as well. So again, there's kind of the whole data protection kind of impact assessments and around the whole processes and stuff as well, that is just in the final stages as well. So okay, thank you. So right there,
Thank you so much, Kira. That was very good. Again, another lot of information, but really, really important. All of it is so important. So very quick recap. Communication, engage with your case officer. I know some of the case officers are here, not everybody is, but if you're a case officer, maybe chat and see if you can find that your project is here. I know some of you already have done. Report on time and update project modifications, really, really important. Corrective actions will be the responsibility of the lead partner. So we care about the projects, we care about the money the same way you do, and we want you to be able to get it. So if you see anything wrong, call it out. Periodically review the programme manual. We do update the versions of that, and it does change. So if you have one on your desk and a printed copy or whatever, remember that it changes and things change. So we do have a digital version of that. Monitor your project outputs and objectives. Visit your application form, just revisit, check why you're here, what you were supposed to do. It doesn't do any harm just to go back and check that, and have practical measures in place to monitor risk and allocate responsibility when you do. And don't forget to put your questions down, please do, because I appreciate a lot of this is a bit rushed, and we do want to be able to support you, and any ideas that you have for what you'd like to see next. That you think maybe it's peer-to-peer learning, focus groups, workshops, anything. We're open to ideas, just let us know. And thank you so much for taking the time to attend. We'll send you out the link, and we will keep you updated with some information on procurement. Yes, and state aid, and there's some monitoring checklists to go as well, and a new manual too. So all of that has to follow soon. So thank you so much for your time. Lunch is out where the tea was, and hopefully you'll have an opportunity to network as well. So thank you.